Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Reading Rainbows, where we're reading Inkheart by Cornelia Funke. Let's see, today we are reading chapter 41, Farid. Ali Baba was surprised to see a well-lighted and spacious chamber, filled with all sorts of provisions, rich bales of silks, embroideries, and valuable tissues, piled upon one another, gold and silver ingots in great heaps, and money in bags. The sight of all these riches made him suppose that this cave must have been occupied for ages by robbers who had succeeded one another. The story of Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves, from the Arabian Nights Entertainments, translated by Edward William Lane. Farid stared at the dark until his eyes hurt, but Dustfinger did not return. Sometimes Farid thought he saw his scarred face among the low-growing branches. Sometimes he thought he heard his almost silent footsteps on the dead leaves. But he was always wrong. Farid was used to listening to the sounds of the night. He had spent endless hours doing so back in his other life, when the world around him was not green but brown and yellow. His eyes had often let him down, but he had always been able to rely on his ears. And, just that little bit of information, just that little bit of detail gives us just so much information about, how it was in his other life, in the book that he came out of. How he would constantly have to sit in the dark, whatever, basically being on lookout and learning how to tell the difference between just the wind and, the footsteps and, the sounds that, someone might make when coming upon, someone that you don't want coming upon you, trying to creep up and all. So, just those little details just tell us so much. All the same, Farid listened in vain that night, the longest night of his life. Dustfinger didn't come back. When day began to dawn above the hills, Farid went to the two captives, gave them water, a little of the dry bread they still had left, and a few olives. "Come on, Farid, untie us," said Silvertongue as Farid put the bread in his mouth. "Dustfinger should have been back by now. You know he should have." Farid said nothing. He loved to hear Silvertongue's voice. It had lured him out of his old, wretched life, but it seemed that Dustfinger didn't like it any more. He didn't know why, and Dustfinger had told him to keep watch on the prisoners. He had said nothing about untying them. Gotta love the attention to detail and the strict following of orders. I was only told to watch you. I wasn't told to untie you. "Look, you're a clever lad," said the woman, "so use your head for a moment, will you? Are you going to sit here until Capricorn's men come and find us? What a sight we'll be, a boy watching two captives who can't lift a finger to help him. They'll fall over laughing." What was she called again? Eleanor. Farid had difficulty remembering the name. It was awkward as a pebble on his tongue, and sounded like the name of an enchantress from a far distant land. He thought her unnatural. She looked at him as a man might look, without timidity or fear, and her voice could be very loud, and as angry as a lion's roar. "We have to get down to the village, Farid," said Silvertongue. "We must find out what's happened to Dustfinger, and where my daughter is." Yes, the girl with the clear, bright eyes, little pieces of sky fallen to the earth and caught in her dark lashes. Farid poked the ground with a stick. An ant was carrying a breadcrumb bigger than itself past his toes. I like how, obviously this is from Farid's point of view, and, the way he thinks of Maggie, the girl with the clear, bright eyes, little pieces of sky fallen to the earth and caught in her dark lashes. That tells us just, first of all, it's a beautiful piece of imagery. yeah, little pieces of the sky fallen to earth and caught in her lashes. But also it tells us that Farid likes her, he thinks her attractive. So I wonder what he'll do if he thinks she's in trouble. Perhaps he doesn't understand what we're saying, said Eleanor. Farid raised his head and cast her a glance of annoyance. Yes, I do. I understand everything. And so he had from the first moment, as if he had never heard any other language. He remembered the red church. Dustfinger had explained that it was a church, although Farid had never been in such a building before. He also remembered the man with the knife. There had been a great many such men in his old life. They loved their knives and did terrible things with them. And again, this thought that, the way he's thinking, oh yes, the red church, though he had never been in a church before. Well, he came out of, the 1,001 Nights or whatever it's called, And so, the culture that story takes place in is not a Christian culture, so they wouldn't really have churches. So, just that little attention to detail. Yeah, I like that. I like the thought that was put into this whole thing, like, when writing the character of Farid, the way he would think, this whole, oh yes, I was told that building was a church, but, that doesn't really mean anything because he's never been in a church before. And, as a thief or whatever in the story that he came from, he probably hadn't been in any real religious building before. Yeah, I mean, his character, I'm trying to think of the culture that, these tales come out of. If anything, it would probably be a Muslim culture. So, God would mean nothing to him, but Allah would. But, he probably would never have been in a mosque before. Because, again, being a thief out in the desert searching for treasure does not lend itself to any sort of religious faith. You'll run off if I untie you. Farid looked uncertainly at Silvertongue. No, I won't. Do you think I'd leave my daughter down there with Basta and Capricorn? Basta and Capricorn. Yes, those had been the names. The knife man and the man with the eyes as colorless as water. A robber, a murderer. Farid knew all about him. Dustfinger had told him a great deal as they sat together by the fire in the evening. They had exchanged sad stories, although both of them longed for one with a happy ending. Now this story was growing darker with each day that passed, too. It'll be better if I go alone. Farid dug the stick so hard into the ground that it broke his fingers. I'm used to slinking into strange villages, strange palaces and houses. It was my job in the old days, if you know what I mean. Silvertongue nodded. They always sent me, Farid went on. Who'd be afraid of a thin young boy? I could sniff around everywhere without arousing suspicion. When did the guards change? Which was the best way of escape? Where did the richest man in the village live? If all went well, they gave me enough to eat. If I didn't, they beat me like a dog. They? Asked Eleanor. The thieves, replied Farid. The two adults fell silent, and Dustfinger still wasn't back. Farid looked toward the village and saw the first rays of the sun rising above the rooftops. Very well, you may be right, said Silvertongue. You go down alone and find out what we need to know, but first untie us. If you don't, we won't be able to help you if they do catch you, and I don't fancy sitting here tied up like this when the first snake wriggles past. Yeah, that wouldn't be very pleasant, sitting there tied up, and a snake comes along. because, of course, the way this story's going, it wouldn't be a harmless snake, it would be a venomous snake. The woman looked as frightened as if she already heard it rustling through the dead leaves. But Farid looked thoughtfully at Silvertongue's face, trying to decide whether his eyes could trust him as his ears already did. Finally, he stood up without a word, took the knife Dustfinger had given him from his belt, and cut them both free. "My God, I'm never letting anyone tie me up like that again," said Eleanor, rubbing her arms and legs. "What do you mean, letting someone? It's not like you sat there and permitted Capricorn's men from tying you up before. It's not like you really said, 'Oh yes, tie me up,' when Dustfinger and Farid went to tie you up. I mean, 'Oh yes, I'll just sit here and meekly let you tie me up. That's no problem.' No. Yeah. That's just dumb comment, Eleanor." "I feel as numb as a rag doll. How are you, Mortimer? Can you still feel your feet?" Farid looked at her curiously. "You don't look like his wife. Are you his mother?" he asked, nodding in Silvertongue's direction. Eleanor's face came out in more red blotches than a toadstool. "Good Lord heavens above, no! What makes you think that? Do I really look so old?" Glancing down at herself, she sighed. "Yes, I probably do. All the same, I'm not his mother. I'm not Maggie's mother either, in case that's your next question. My children were all made of paper and printer's ink, and that man," she said, pointing to the rooftops of Capricorn's village shining through the trees, "that man down there destroyed a great many of them. Believe me, he'll regret it." "And just what do you plan to do about it, Eleanor?" Honestly, it's not like you're gonna fight him. You'll sit there and you'll yell at him, he'll laugh at you, and then he'll probably kill you. I mean, it's not like you've really got any way to defend yourself. Farid looked at her doubtfully. He couldn't imagine Capricorn being afraid of a woman, certainly not one who got out of breath when she climbed a hill and was scared of snakes. No, if the man with the pale eyes feared anything, it would be what most people feared, death. And Eleanor didn't look as if she knew much about killing. Nor did Silvertongue. "The girl," Farid hesitated before asking, "where is her mother?" Silvertongue went over to the cold fireplace and took a piece of the bread lying among the soot-blackened stones. "She went away long ago," he said. "Maggie was just 3. What about your own mother?" Farid shrugged his shoulders and looked up at the sky. It was as blue as if the night had never been. "I'd better go now," he said, putting his knife away and picking up Dustfinger's backpack. Gwyn was sleeping close to it, curled up between the roots of a tree. Farid picked him up and put him in the pack. The marten sleepily protested, but Farid tickled his head and strapped up the pack. "Why are you taking that marten?" asked Eleanor in surprise. "The smell of him could give you away." "He may be useful," replied Farid, pushing the tip of Gwyn's bushy tail into the backpack too. "He's clever, cleverer than a dog or a camel anyway. He understands what you say to him, and maybe he'll find Dustfinger." First of all, Eleanor's comment about, the smell of the marten will give you away. I'm sorry, I don't think it's going to smell that bad that, they're going to sniff the air, go, "Oh, that smells like a marten. Gee, that boy must be here." No. First of all, Capricorn's men all seem pretty dim-witted. And, just, it's not like they'd know what a marten smells like. Second of all, even the ones that came out of the book, with Dustfinger and Capricorn, probably aren't going to go, "Oh, I smell, the vague odor of a marten. Hey, that must be the one that Dustfinger always has with him." That's dumb. Second of all, aside from all that, I like Farid's comment about, he's cleverer than a dog or a camel. He wouldn't really have much experience with very many different animals. I mean, again, from the area where the book he's from comes from, camels would be fairly prevalent. They're very popular in that sort of story. So, he'd have a lot of experience with camels, and I'm sure dogs, because, guard dogs and all that, but aside from that, what other animals would he really have a whole lot of experience with to compare things to? Farid. Silvertongue was searching his pockets and took out a piece of paper. "I don't know if you'll be able to find out where they're keeping Meggie prisoner," he said, hastily scribbling something with the stump of a pencil. "But if possible, can you try to see that she gets this note?" Farid took the piece of paper and looked at it. "What does it say?" he asked. Eleanor took the note from his hand. "Heavens above, Mortimer, what's this?" she asked. Silvertongue smiled. "Meggie and I have often sent secret messages in this writing. She's much better at it than I am. Don't you recognize it? It comes from a book. We're not far away, it says. Don't worry, we'll soon get you out. Mo, Eleanor, and Farid. Meggie will be able to read the message, but no one else will." "Aha!" murmured Eleanor, giving Farid the note back. "Yes, if it falls into the wrong hands, it's better that way. After all, perhaps some of those fire raisers can read." Farid folded the note until it was about the size of a coin, then put it in his pants pocket. "I'll be back when the sun is above those hills at the latest," he said, "or if I'm not." "If you're not, I'll come and look for you," Silvertongue ended the sentence. "And so will I, of course," added Eleanor, looking fierce. Again, Eleanor, what are you gonna do? At least Mo has at least a little bit of experience, with the sword and fighting and all that. You just talk everyone to death. Farid did not think that was a good idea, but he didn't say so. He left, going the same way that Dustfinger had gone the night before, disappearing as if the ghosts who lurked in the darkness had eaten him alive. So that's the end of that chapter. I thank you for joining me. I hope you come back soon for chapter 42, and I hope you have a great day.